Matthew Malach, who is a writer for the series. He wrote The Shifter, Heat of the Era, Helpless Laughter, and The Zax Factor. We have Lee Schneider, who is another writer for the series. He wrote Divide and Conquer, The Transfer, Fond Memories, and Monkey's Bargain. We have Gerrianne Raphael, who is most notably, she did several voices, but she's known for the voices of Pumara and Chilla. We have Lynne Lipton, who, as everyone knows, is the voice of Chitara, Wally Kit, and Luna, amongst others. And Peter Newman, on the end, the voice of Tigra, Wally Cat, Monkeyan, and again, several other characters. There's also this guy, Larry Kenney, who...
he likes to make a grand entrance, so when he walks in, boo. Do that for me.
Yeah, so you hold on to your wallet.
Just when he comes in, just sis and boo. He will walk in grandly.
This might be him. Oh, it's him!
There it is.
Oh, we're kidding. Everyone, a round of applause for this lady.
Thank you. I'm very sorry. I had to pee.
They know that. We already told them.
You know how much I really...
So just, this is a general question for everyone. Thundercats has resonated with fans all around the world, and just, did you have any idea whenever you were creating the show back then that there would still be fans in rooms like this today that would still want to discuss and talk about the history of the show?
I didn't realize it was for us.
I didn't think I'd be in a room today 30 years later. No, you had no idea, right? I mean, who would have thought?
You never know that, really. You just do your work.
Even when it was becoming famous, while we were there, it was just, it didn't seem like it was real. It was just very strange.
Yeah. So, as an actor, I think you, for me at least, you're happy to get a job, you know. Yes. That's the first thing. Got the gig, you know, can eat again. And then comes the realization that this is a good show. This is, you know, this is really some good work we're doing here. Then came the realization that the public felt the same way, you know, and the show began to become more and more popular. And then this thing's a hit, you know. But I don't think, for me at least, there was ever a thought of 30 years from now we'll be sitting answering questions about this show and whatever. So many things have come into play that created that, like the internet and all that sort of thing, social media and stuff like that. But I certainly never thought.
Yeah,
and the fact that it's 30 years is just bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, I think, remember when it went off the air, and then it sort of disappeared, because the internet wasn't big then. We had never, when we did this, we didn't have cable. Our original contract said nothing about cable because it was not an issue. And then there were whatever legal wrangles with ownership, you know, with the sale of the company, et cetera, et cetera. And so this was, Thundercats disappeared. And I was explaining to a couple of people earlier that when the project finished, I still had all my scripts and all the records, you know, information collected during the process. And at some point, in trying not to be an accumulator of paper, you know, one does not want to clutter one's life. I just had to get rid of it.
You're not a hoarder?
I'm not a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. I decided, well, okay, it was great. I loved it. Great experience. Time to get rid of stuff, and I destroyed the scripts because I didn't think, I didn't want to just put it out. Yeah, I can see that. Turn on in a second.
Because, well, I remember, I'm sorry.
No, my feeling was it was like a sense of privacy. Well, you don't want to just put this stuff out, you know, in the trash because who knows who will end up with it. And, you know, it's kind of private stuff. And so I destroyed all those stuff. If I'd only known.
Because
So you're not a hoarder, but you are anal.
But Peter's scripts were, if he didn't shred them, and you know, he knew there was the internet. Now he used to write things in his script. I mean,
but
I can't.
it was
There was
clean.
salacious. No, it wasn't. I read those notes, those parenthetical notes.
But they were to you. Or as we called Chitara in those days, Thunder Thighs.
I've always referred to her as the original Thundercats hoe.
See what you started?
Get it? Oh. Yeah.
Okay, guys, because we're friends now. Yeah, maybe I slept around, but I never slept with a cat. I just never did. It wasn't my thing. You know?
So this is the first year that we've actually had writers join the panel. So Lee and Matthew, could you give us some insight as to how you got involved with Thundercats?
Well, at the time, I was a playwright, and I was trying to write spec scripts for TV comedies. And it's one of those things where I knew a guy who knew a guy. And I got a shot at writing one of these scripts, which for me, as a playwright, I knew upstage, downstage, stage right, stage left. And this writing for Thundercats was like writing for the multiverse. It was like writing for a whole other dimension. You have X, Y, Z axis, and time. So it was like going from Newtonian physics to quantum mechanics. And I felt really amazed and lucky to be working with people like Matthew and Peter Lawrence, who really knew how to visualize things. So how did I get the job? I would say a lot of it was a right place, right time kind of thing, because there was no previous blueprint in my work to figure out how to write in those kind of dimensions and for those kind of characters. I've written a lot of fiction and things like that, and I've written a lot of different kinds of things, but nothing with that level of, you know, it's happening in all these dimensions, there's all these different characters, anything can happen, people can switch voices, whatever you want can occur. I didn't have that kind of freedom before. So I would say dumb luck was a possibility, and right place, right time.
I think it's great to have a couple of writers on the panel, because it's very rare. And I remember back when we were recording with Gerrianne, you remember you used to always be saying, "Who wrote this crap?"
You can count on Larry.
And I think it's extraordinary to be discussing plutonium physics on a panel of Thundercats, because as an actor, I actually, you know, studied plutonium physics.
It's
it was
Newtonian.
I actually studied Newtonian physics.
It's linoleum.
I actually studied linoleum physics. And it was a choice between that or doing Thundercats. And, you know, A equals C squared.
Okay.
Oh, and
That's as close as he's going to get, so don't wait for anything else.
Well, if you're going to bring your relatives into this, okay, listen.
If I could, Lee,
Yeah.
I just want to, Larry, could you leave? It's not about you this time.
Will it take long?
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute. It's a 30-second spot. Lee, I want to say, I did the voice of Monkey, and that episode of Monkey and Bargain is one of my favorite to record. It was so much fun. Monkey got the spotlight. He gets to take over the world, and it's a total flop at the job. He's crashing down at the end. It was to record as an actor play. You know, it was just so much fun. So it's just great to see you and meet you again after all these years.
Yeah, thanks. It was a really unusual experience to figure that out. You know, and Peter was really helpful. You know, because there were times where I felt I didn't really know what I was doing at all, because there's so much freedom in this.
yeah,
You know, you can do anything. And for someone who's used to actors on a stage, and then suddenly you can, you know, things can fly and you can blow things up, and there's no, what's the budget for that? Well, you know, the guys just have to draw it. That was pretty amazing. But I really want to hear from Matthew, one of the great
I started at Rankin Bass because I knew Jules Bass because I used to date his daughter, which is the way I suggested. So you want to get to show business? Yeah. So I knew Jules Bass, and I worked for him before Thundercats. And when I got there, I didn't know anything about animation. So I worked in production before I was a writer. I directed these fine actors doing voices, wherever they are, and worked on storyboards and did all sorts of stuff before I started writing. So it was a great experience. And like Lee says, the thing about an animation script, if you have one, you can compare it to a regular motion picture script. There's tons of words in an animation script because we're creating a picture, and we have to be as clear as possible in creating a picture. And it's an amazing opportunity, and it's hard as hell. But when you see it, even if it's poorly animated, once you see it on the air, it's a very gratifying experience. So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, movie scripts are like haiku, but animation scripts are like architectural plans.
Right. It's every detail, which is what's great about it. So.
We used to make all those noises that weren't really words or part of the script after we had recorded the show. And then we would come and stand there and go, ow!
We would call them
you know, what all those other things would come in after. That was a separate thing.
Lee would actually call them oohs and ahs sessions, or
Ooh and ahs sessions,
grunts and groans
right.
sessions.
Grunts and
Should
groans.
say, okay, we're good for the day, but stick around. We may need some grunts and groans and oohs and ahs.
Yeah, so if the rhino falls off a cliff, we need the impact.
We need the actual
and
sound.
And you would go, and yeah, so it was,
And sometimes, most of the time, I think those things, we would do that for something that had already been animated, that we recorded a few weeks before. But once it was animated, they decided we're going to have something for when we didn't realize he was going to hit the ground so hard. From what I remember, and we'd be,
Yeah, we had a huge reel of just grunts.
Where is that reel?
Yeah, it's under my bed.
Oh, that's funny. You should be a writer.
Speaking of writing, so for Lee and Matthew, what level of effort was there to try to maintain continuity throughout the series, and how difficult was that as the episodes increased to well over 100?
I never dealt with, my scripts were kind of out of the ordinary because I tried to write funny scripts, and so I didn't deal with continuity. Lee was on staff as a writer. I was just freelancing, so
I dealt with it somewhat. When I was a story editor on Silverhawks, I oversaw all those scripts, and then I did become more interested in continuity because, if something blew up and it was in the next episode, that didn't make sense. But yeah, that's an interesting question. The primary continuity was really character continuity. It's, like, could these guys make it be in that character? And sometimes I would write some jokes. You were better at the jokes. I would write jokes, and they would say that's ridiculous, and I'd have to, Peter would rewrite them, or you would fix them, or someone would change them. So I think the primary continuity was characters.
Okay, so for I guess Matthew, you can weigh in on this too, because one thing that I forgot to mention that I had learned from speaking to him, that you were also a director for the voice actors for the first season. So what was it like? It still blows my mind that so many voices were just basically done by a handful of people. What was it like to go from voice to voice in your recording sessions? Was it difficult? Was it something that you could just do in one take? Could you just give some insight into that? Well, it's for Matthew, but also for any of the voice actors too.
All I can say very briefly, it was the most fun, and I haven't had as much fun going into the studio with these guys and recording. We would record, I believe, 3 shows in a day, and it was just
Two.
Two.
And then two.
Yeah,
Two
one in the morning, one in the
and
afternoon.
then one morning, afternoon, and then the next
Then
day,
one.
one.
Yeah.
Was that-
Oh, that's what it was.
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 a week. Yeah.
3 a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a great experience, and these guys can have more, I'm sure. But you have to understand, nowadays in animation, they call separate people in for every character that appears.
Yeah.
Back then we had 7 people, and they did everything in the first season, absolutely everything. And that's amazing.
And that was the most fun.
We were just 5 that we were
the other
five.
actors
Yeah.
in the studio and play off of each other, as opposed to what happens now, where you go in and you just have you do your line like 3 times, and then you do it again and go down the line for each line, and it's not the same. The atmosphere was
it was all just terrific. There's a wonderful actor named Earl Hyman who did Panthro, who was also the father of Cosby at the time. And being an African-American actor at that time, the world wasn't open to him. So he was like, we would have lunch sometime and he would say, I can't believe I'm making so much money. I'm making money, And he was also a Shakespearean actor. So when we would finish recording the show, and he wasn't doing Cosby, he would go off to Europe and the Scandinavian countries and play Lear. It was amazing.
Just to mention, he also acted in Norway. He was famous in Norway, and he spoke Norwegian, acted in Norwegian. So this is not your average guy. So amazing. Wonderful that he did these great, created these great cartoon characters, but he was an exceptional human being beyond that.
Yeah.
So, and I always did my stuff in one take, perfectly. Just the original question, I just want to
that is bullshit.
Outtake.
That is totally, totally, I understand. There's a lot of discussion these days and rumors and trying to legalize marijuana. You call it marijuana, weed, pot,
I call it more.
I mean, when I would walk in to the studio, first of all, I was the only woman. I was just, and I'm sort of a conservative, never.
Larry, are you holding?
It was a fog, man. It was a fog. And they go, yo, Chitara's here, wow.
What in the hell
What are you doing?
Don't forget Adolf Caesar. We're not even talking about this another actor who used to nap between takes. He just lie down on the floor. Adolf, remember?
And doesn't get up and do his perfect take.
And had the deepest voice of Adolf Caesar had such a voice.
Yeah.
And he was a little tiny man, very short, and he had a very, very deep voice.
And the story about him, because he had never really done this kind of work before and didn't completely understand the process. And so while we were reading a script, while we were doing a show, there came a part in the scene where his character, is in a fight, gets hit and falls down. Well, he does it, and threw himself on the floor.
I think it's more like he collapsed.
Well, I'm just observing, just to observe. And so I think Lee was directing at the time, and so she just very kindly said, Adolf, that's terrific. But we'll take care of that afterwards, those sound effects. So you don't have to do that. And it was all fine after that, but I'm stunned, But he didn't know the process. So as an actor, as a fine actor, experienced actor, there you go. So you never know what you're gonna come up with in showbiz.
He won an Oscar. Didn't he?
Yeah, he was nominated.
Yeah, Soldier Story.
He was
That's right.
nominated.
Yeah.
He's
nominated for an Oscar. Yeah.
Soldier Story. That's right.
He died of alcoholism. Yeah, he did.
You die from that?
Yeah.
Larry, and they want this one too.
Gotta go something.
So the next question I have is actually for Gerrianne and Lynne. Thundercats, I guess, is primarily thought of as a show, at least in the 80s, for young boys, but there are a lot of female fans of the show as well. And could you talk about the cultural impact that you've been made aware of by your characters on female fans that grew up with them in the show?
I was the Gloria Steinem of cats. I think having a strong female character, whether it's animated or real.
Live would be another.
Live would be another. It was a great. It was just great for kids, especially young girls, to see a woman who could stand even with a man. So I was very proud of G-Tar, and most of the characters like Mandora, they were all strong, which speaks of the writers, that they cared to make the women as equal to the man in the characters of the
Because there were only two of us, and Lynne was there the whole first year. I wasn't on the show the first season, and so there were all these men in the studios, and we were very special because we were the only ones, and so the female voice came up, and there were a lot of negative characters. I mean, like Chilla and so forth. That it was great fun to do that, and it was just a ball. People appreciated it. It's fun to do.
The little girls. I think I spoke of this last year. I used to go up to like shelters and schools up in uptown in New York and Harlem and stuff, and take the scripts. Not the ones that were annotated by Peter, but and they would just, would act them out. That was the idea of why I took them, and they would act them out, and they were so excited. But the little girls were as animated and as ferocious as the guys, and sometimes they would say, "I want to be Lionel. I want to be," they want to be the male characters. So it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, you don't know a lot about me, Larry.
Larry, tell the story about when in Toys R Us. When,
Yeah.
I love that story.
Knows it. If you haven't heard it, it's and I always tell this. Thank you, Gerrianne. When people ask, when did you first realize the show was a big hit? For me, it was I was Christmas shopping at Toys R Us, and it must have been. The show went on the air in '85, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, that's correct.
We began recording late '83, as I recall.
No, it would be
Or late '84.
Yeah.
So this must have been in Christmas of '85. Okay, doesn't matter. Maybe. Well, I'm trying to get the time frame because it matters to the point of my story. But I'm in Toys R Us, and I walk in, and suddenly there are 3 aisles only Thundercats toys. Now that's when. A week before, it had been maybe one aisle of Thundercats, one aisle of Ninja Turtles, one aisle of Master Universe, He-Man, She-Ra, there were so many. Now it was 3, and I said, "Oh my God, the show is a big hit." And as I'm walking down the aisle, looking at everything, the Cat's Lair, and they have the Thunder Tank, and there are 2 boys, probably between 8 and 12. And I can hear them. One of them says, "I'm gonna get Tiger. He's the coolest." One of them. The other one says, "I think I'll get Panthro because he's really tough." So me, I have to be. I can't just silently walk on. I go over and I half jokingly said, "Hey guys, you ought to get Lionel because he's the one who says, thunder, Thundercats." Oh! And they look at me like. So I walk away, and I hear one of them say, "It sounds made up," so I swear on my children, especially my son, I'm not going to do that. I hear one of them say, "He didn't even sound like him." And I stopped and I laughed. I thought, if he only knew. He'd shit his pants if he knew the lion would just. And I hope that, because it's been on the internet, I always bring this up in interviews, I hope that kid at some point sees that and goes, "That was him!"
And his name was Jeffrey Katzman.
It was Sam Register.
Chris Trengrove, who wrote, I think he wrote some Thundercats, but he wrote Silverhawks. So he used to say when he saw one of the characters that he created, it was like seeing one of your children grow up and become shrink wrap.
Oh, that's fun.
One of the things, we're all actors, so you go to an audition, even years later, even to this day, and you have it on your resume, but it's just one of those lines on a resume. But you go into an audition and somebody looks at it and goes, "Oh, I see you do this in Thundercats," and they are impressed, you know, and it breaks the ice in some way because you know they're saying, "Oh wow, oh she could do that," you know. I guess she could do Lady Macbeth.
Somebody about the fame and the effect of it, and somebody asked last night, even one of our big fans, Nick, I think, asked about, or somebody asked about personal appearances. Did we do personal appearances? Maybe it was you, Brett?
Yeah.
Brett. Okay, Brett. Did we get to do personal appearances in line with either promoting the cartoon itself or toys? And we didn't. And my thought about it, as we were discussing, was that, well, remember, these are the kids who are, you know, between 5, 6, 10 at the time. They don't want to see us. You know, they see us, and then what's that got to do with anything? So no, we never did. And when they eventually did a show, a live Thundercats show, it was with the people in the muscle costumes, you know, looking like the characters, because that's what was important to the kids.
I was, Peter, apropos of that, I was visiting my family in Illinois while the show was on, and my brother Steve had apparently told all the neighborhood kids that Lion-O is coming. What an idiot. Because I get to his house, and he's the smart brother. And I get to the house, and he's got them all in this other room. I didn't know. He hadn't told me that there were kids in there waiting. I didn't know he had told them Lion-O. He just says, "Come on over the house." And he opens the door, and there's like 14 kids between 5 and 15. And my brother goes, "Hi kids, Lion-O." And they're all like, I said, "Steve." Well, he's the guy that does the voice of Lion-O. Now that's not impressive either, you know. Not as much as it would have been if Lion-O had walked in. I have the leotard, but it's not a
I want to see it.
You'll see it later.
Fantasy night.
I'm surprised they never. Now this is going to sound like.
Oh, not from you. It won't.
No, not from me. But they never. Did they ever make a porn movie with the title of
Yes, I think they called it
Thank you for coming,
the titles of those movies sometimes are. I don't know. I don't know.
She does seem to have a lot of information about it.
No, that was another line.
Again, Thundercats hope.
All right, we'll open it up for fan questions now.
Yeah, you better.
You know, as actors, we usually pull from real life inspirations. Do each of you have any outside inspirations that help find your character voice for each of your characters?
Gandhi. Fine. I used him a lot.
Isaac Newton, Newtonian physics.
For me, at least, and I think for all, maybe for all our Thundercats characters, our voices. Lion-O was my voice. Then we all did other characters and mutants, which was, for me at least, the most fun to do, because I think any actor will tell you, playing a bad guy, whether it's on film or it's on stage, especially an animated bad guy, is the most fun, because as the writers were telling us, you can take them anywhere and be phantasmagorical with them and make them do. So to be able to act that, you know, I mean, I always envied Earl Hammond for being able to, you know, ancient spirits of evil.
Yes.
Yes.
Moron drools, right? Earl did that as he was doing, literally, right?
Yes.
And
in fact, it got to the point, after several episodes, after several recording sessions, we would all be looking pages ahead, and we'd tell each other, page 5, or I was going to do this. And all started backing up. Like Gallagher audience, you know, plastic. Because Earl would go, ancient spirits of evil. He would start wiping on the. Remember that? Transform into, oh, right.
And sometimes the sound effect, when we do the sound effects at the end of the script, it would sometimes save the Mumra's big laugh for the end because it was so taxing.
Yeah, it was so hard. I mean, it was so heavy on his vocal cords.
And he knew what was coming, you know. And sometimes he would start. It was like would just lose it. It'd be gone.
And you did that with Monkey too.
Yeah, that's true. The sound effects afterwards.
Well,
the thing about, I'm just sorry, from real life, this notion. The only thing I can think about it. Obviously, you know, we all have in our heads whatever our experience is. But sometimes with characters like Monkey or Bengali, just the notion of what would an ape sound like, what kind of, you know, or Bengali, wow. It comes from watching National Geographic or whatever.
I've always wondered, Gerrianne, because you're one of your many characters, Chilla.
Yeah.
Now that was an unusual voice, and what was your thought process of what
it was written that I'd make this blue breath blow out, and then I'd have a speech to do, and it was extremely difficult to go and then have to talk because you had nothing left in there. So what I did was I did it in, and then I had plenty of breath to do the thing, and it would sound as though it was all out. So it would be, and then I would talk, and I had plenty of voice to say whatever it was that I had to say, because I had all that air.
I think.
Here, I thought it was some philosophical thing.
But the guys, you know, certainly the first year when I was surrounded by these sort of masters of doing this, they would say things to me like, you know, and growing up, when you grow up, you're always imitating other people. I mean, that's what you do. You become other people. So that growing up and being an actor, it was watching other actors, and Larry or Pete or Earl or, excuse me, all of them would say, oh, give us a little Katharine Hepburn. Oh, give us a little Betty Davis. Oh, give us a little this and that, you know. And if you listen to some of the characters, there was just a plethora of them where there was a slight bit of Katharine Hepburn, and there would be Betty Davis, or I remember there were twins I did once, and to delineate.
Newtonian.
They constantly made fun of me, even then. They just put me down.
No, we weren't laughing at you. We were laughing near you.
But there was Mia Farrow, I remember, because I had done a play with her, and she had done something, and she had done a Chekhov play that I had seen, and it was her doing an English accent, and she would talk like boring, boring, boring. And there's a character in Thundercats who was Mia Farrow. So it's not so much an inner life for me, many of the characters, but what the ideas the guys would, you know, give me, and then I would just sort of put it together in some silly way.
I remember kind of channeling for Jackalman, who was my main mutant. I thought of, well, the jackal you think of, at least I think is kind of, I don't know, sneaky. For me, that, yeah, kind of sly and creepy and, you know, lurking. And so I had that in mind. But I also, one day, the first day, how am I going to give it? Suddenly popped in my mind, and I don't know if you folks are old enough to remember Snidely Whiplash on Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Hello now. I'm going to tie you to the railroad tracks now.
So that's where Jackalman kind of got that little...
Sure.
We must get the Thundercats, yeah?
You know, references, there seems to be really nothing original. I mean, we are...
Wait a minute.
No. I mean, if we were doing, say, older Thundercats today, I mean, what? Give me Miley Cyrus's voice. Do we know what that sounds like? You know what I mean? I mean, there aren't these iconic.
If I were like, yeah, maybe I know that, but I would do Lionel. We did it again as like Michael Jackson. That's what she does. Stop teasing. Oh, shut
Okay. You guys are just like amazing. I have to say that. I listen to you guys every time the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
And, sadly, with Thundercats, the newer show that just ended, if it ever comes back, since you guys are so connected with these characters, how would you like, your characters to be portrayed in a new incarnation? Like, what would you like them to wear?
Well, I wouldn't want Pumira to be evil. They turned her evil, and she was not evil. She was strong and, ballsy, but not evil.
Right.
So that's my...
Don't beat around the bush. What did you think of the...
when I saw the one of the episodes of the new Thundercats, I was just surprised how dark it was. Not only in the shades, literally, but the tone as well. That Wily Kid and Wily Cat. We did those, the kittens.
Oh yeah. Let's get to do it.
Hey, I'm talking now.
All right, you two. I'll turn this thunder tank around and we'll go to further.
They had become street urchins. And I commented to somebody that the only thing was missing was they were picking food out of a garbage can. Now, listen, it's a different world now. It's a different world, and I don't know that the original Thundercats would work because kids are so much more sophisticated and have been exposed to so much sooner. I don't know if it would be interesting enough to them. So that's fair. That's fair game. But it would be interesting in the context of whatever somebody else came up with. Remember, we're actors, and it's a job, it's work, it's what we do. And as much as it was wonderful then to do the audition, get the job, it would be that same experience in this new context to have the new assignment to create the characters anew for this world, for this third Earth revised, or fourth Earth, I don't know, whatever you would want to call it.
But nobody was given that opportunity except Larry.
Yeah, Larry. It's all about
He was in the new one for a short time.
Mom always liked me back. I thought that was actually a wonderful homage to Warner Brothers when they asked me to do Claude, as Lionel's father, and it turned out to be that it was, after talking with Dan Norton, who was the art director, and all the people and the writers, all those people in Warner Brothers who worked on that show, they began working on that show in the year 2000, believe it or not. The idea, Warner Brothers, we had a panel yesterday with Dan Norton and a couple of other guys from Warner Brothers, and they were all Thundercats fans as kids. They loved Thundercats, and so they began promoting. They were working within Warner Brothers, got kind of covertly together and said, "We got to come up with some ideas, and to give the front office for a new Thundercats. We got it." So they started in the year 2000, coming up with what characters should look, and finally by the year 2005 or 6, they had convinced them to do a new show. Then it took another 4 years to put it together, but that's how long they had been working on the idea, because they loved it so much. That's why there were so many references, little Zamaflan references, and verbals, and over-verbals and stuff like that. I got to start as well by saying that asking me to do that was an homage to all of us, and to the entire cast.
But he's the only one that got paid for it.
Show me the money. Show me the money.
It's a blank.
And one flashback scene. And an homage to the fans of the original show as well. We showed the Warner Brothers took me out brought me to San Francisco for WonderCon in 2010.
Yeah.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Remember, and they showed the first full episode in this theater of 4,000 or 5,000 people. We were backstage, and doing interviews and things like that. So we could hear the thing, but it was so loud you couldn't tell at what point we were in the episode and stuff. Suddenly this enormous roar went up from the audience. And I turned around and Dan Norton from Warner Brothers came over and he said, you know, it just happened on screen. I said, the audience recognized you as Claude saying, thunder, thunder, thunder. And I teared up. So the audience got it. Not that that's Larry Kenney, not that that's, you know, but that that's the voice we remember. And they put it in the show. So that's what I learned about it. But yeah, I did get paid.
I missed that. I don't know, must have gotten lost in the mail.
As I remember, Larry, you asked me to send you money because you paid homage.
No, that was bail. It's all over, so don't forget this.
I think we've got time for one more audience question, if there is one.
They couldn't care less.
Yes.
Well, we talked about your inspiration as voice actors, but what about the writers? Was there anything that inspired you to write your story?
I grew up watching Star Trek, the original Star Trek series, and I just remember the episodes that I remember the most were the ones that were just a little bit out of the ordinary for Star Trek. If you're familiar with Star Trek, like A Piece of the Action, or the Tribbles episode. Put these characters into these positions. So that was always my goal. Was to my inspiration came from Star Trek in writing episodes that didn't seem to fit, and that was mine at least.
Matt, I thought you said you were working out your psychosexual issues. What you said? No, somebody else.
Yeah, that's true. I would say, Star Trek and Twilight Zone and all that kind of classic TV, because to make it work in the 20-odd minutes, you really had to be economical with what you were doing. And you could have all these grand plans and realize you've written out the whole script, and it was pretty stupid because you didn't make it past where you should have made it. So, and I bring up Peter Lawrence again, who is a great structure guy. He would, when I was writing the Monkey Bargain piece, he said, this is a Faustian bargain. And I said, I had to kind of look that up, what is he talking about? But he was right, and he had a way of looking at things to make them fit in that really short with a commercial break. You really had to make it fit well. So we did think, I thought a lot about Twilight Zone and Star Trek and all that, because they did that so well.
Okay, I guess last we can start with Matthew and everyone else. If there's any current projects that you would like to update us on or anything like that, feel free.
I don't write for animation at all anymore. I work. I was at E! Networks for about 13 years, and I've written for shows since then, like Bizarre Foods and House Hunters, and so I do kind of live TV. But some of those shows are just like cartoons anyway.
I also am not writing for animation. We wrote a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles together a long time ago. But right now I'm launching something called Digital Fundraising School, which is a crowdfunding school online. So if anyone's interested in crowdfunding any projects, I will help you. It starts on Wednesday. The first session's free. digitalfundraisingschool.com. Check it out. That's what I'm doing.
Great.
That's great. I'm not doing any cartoons at the moment. I'm working on an upcoming off-Broadway production of Richard III, where I'll be playing the Duchess of York.
Oh, nice.
All right. I'm still doing radio and TV commercials and things like that. Animation-wise, I'm still, for nearly 40 years, I've been the voice of Sonny the Cocoa Puffs bird. I'll be here, I want to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs! I'm still the voice of Count Chocula, although we don't do many commercials for him anymore. But it's still frightfully delicious. And it has all the major food groups, sugar and chocolate, and another layer of sugar. Commercials that I'm on, Skittles. Feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow. That's I use that same voice on a show that's coming back this fall on Best Week Ever, at VH1 called Best Week Ever. It's the third weekend in April, the best week ever! And I am the narrator on a show that's I'm so proud of. On the Discovery Channel, but wait, it's called Tickle. It's a spin-off of Moonshiners. Well, it looks like Tickle's in trouble again. Boss Hogg's after him. Daisy May won't wear them little cut-off shorts anymore. That's what I'm doing. Thank
you. Well, I'm just finishing my first play, which was read at Sam French, which is a place in New York, publishing. They publish plays, and I was doing this web series. There are a lot of web series that you'll never see the light of day, and I do believe this will be one of them. It's called Her and Yet. I have no idea, but it's fun, and I've been doing Are you coughing in it?
No, but coughing behind you. I'll wipe the shirt off, don't worry.
I love to do books on tape, which I still continue doing, and I recently started to, just because I like to give back a lot, reading for the blind, and what else? I do a lot of things in the city. I just finished an off-Broadway play, which was really bad, and did a number of readings at this wonderful theater in New York called Rattlestick, which is a sort of an off-Broadway theater, but they do lots of wonderful plays, and I work there a lot. So that's about it. And I'm on the street a lot these days. It's hard to be on the street again.
What?
But people take credit cards now. Even there, I have an app.
How about you, Peter? What's
Well, I've been cleaning out my sock drawers the past 5 years. And tomorrow I'm going to be going to the dump to see if I can find those scripts that I threw away like an idiot. I go into town, still in the commercial business. For me, not a lot going on work-wise, and sadly, I have to admit I'm kind of content just chilling out a lot of the time. My wife and I travel. We like to travel. We have more time now because she's not working.
Peter's wife is sitting right there.
There she is. Hello.
She is a wonder. He is so lucky.
Would you mention your beautiful wife's name?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
I'll tell you why I said it after.
Okay. Gina. Her name is Gina.
I'll tell you why, because there's an old country music star named Hank Snow. That big eight-wheeler rolling down the track. I was at Grand Ole Opry in 1973 when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The man stands up to make his speech, and he says, "I want to thank," oh my gosh, because the inductees don't know they're going to be inducted until that, so they don't have a chance to write a speech. So give him that. He stands up and says, Oh, fans, I want to thank all the fans in the world for buying my record. RCA Records, I've been with them 57 years. Oh, thank you so much. And my management company, and Larry, Kenney, and all the country music disc jockeys out there, thank you so much for playing my records. But most of all, I'm sorry. Most of all, I want to thank the woman who's been by my side for 61 years. The love of my life. Mrs. Hank Snow. And she stands up and waves just happy as hell as she can be to be Mrs. Hank Snow. And to this day, I don't know what her name is.
Well, Gina will not answer to Mrs. Tigra. No matter how I try, she just won't answer.
I'll be a hog again and just say, we from here over are used to getting lovely applause and accolades from people like you. I don't know if these guys down here ever get much of a chance, but I'd like to give it to them now. if we didn't write it so good, we wouldn't have been able to record it like we did.
Exactly.
If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
Don't squat with your spurs on. Hold it. Thank you all.
Yeah, stop by, Gerrianne, Larry, Lynne, and Peter have a table, so stop by, say hello, and get an autograph. And this concludes the panel. Thank you.
I love you like an all-below spot.